stability today. So we spent a lot of time talking about exercise last time, and so this is kind of a follow-up to that in terms of a specificity of stability. So this is going to be a little bit different. I am going to talk for a while, but then we're going to do some hands-on stuff, because there's some videos that, again, the book, Dr. Attia Outlive, he has on his website these videos that will help you guys. So I'm going to go over them with you, but then you'll have free reign of being able to see these videos and test your stability, which was frightening for me, and then work on your stability from home. So we're going to spend our time doing that. The one thing that I'm going to talk about, because I had a ton of questions about VO2 after all of that happened, and the biggest thing was the misconception that our Apple Watches are accurate. They're not. So they're just simply not. So unless you're, and even then, it's just not. But if you're using it and tracking your workouts all the time, and you're working at that high intensity where it's going to see what your ability is at that high intensity level, and you're going to be doing zone 2 and all these different things, it'll probably get like a general idea of what your VO2 is, but it's not accurate. If you want an accurate VO2, which I am definitely considering doing, I've got to convince myself of that, you need to actually have to go to a lab and be tested. So there's no real good predictor of VO2 other than going specifically, getting hooked up to a treadmill or a bike, and then having to wear that mask, and they measure how much oxygen you can take up and utilize in your body at a really high max effort pace. So it's not a comfortable thing to do, but it's an accurate way to do it. Kind of like the InBody, where you can buy the scales that give you kind of an idea of what your body fat is, but really they can't. But the InBody can. So better machines can do that. So the thing that the Apple Watch might do for you, if you do a good job of tracking it, so you've got to actually work out and track your workouts for it to even get an idea of what you're capable of, what your VO2 might be. And then it's not going to be accurate, but what it might be, and I can't even speak that it might be, but I'm just thinking that it might be consistently inaccurate, if you know what I mean. So if you're tracking your workouts and it decides your VO2 is 40 or something like that, and then you're trying to improve, I'm not sure if 40 is correct, probably it's not correct, it could be higher or lower, who knows, but then it might be consistently incorrect. So then if you just are trying to find a steady increase, is it actually going up? Even though 40 might not be accurate, but is it going up? That's what you're looking for, or is it going down? So those are the things you're looking for. But you would really have to be wearing it all the time and turning it on like when you're actually working out and telling it that you're doing certain things. So it has to track you, okay? So just so you know that, because some people are like, how is this possible? Mine says this and this person says this. It's not accurate, okay? So, but go get tested. I would definitely do it. I'm considering doing it. It just is not pleasant. So every time I've seen it, I'm like, yuck, I wouldn't like to do that. But it would give you an accurate estimate if you're looking for that. Okay, so that's the VO2. If you have any questions about that, you can talk to me afterwards if you're concerned about something. So we're moving on from there, and we're going to talk about stability today. And I talk about it, as do the coaches talk about it in the gym all the time, in terms of how we hold our bodies. This is going to go a little bit further in terms of testing the sort of the stability and mobility of your body, and can you be stable in what you're trying to do? And we're going to talk about what that actually means today. The one thing that I just wanted to talk about in the beginning, though, so statistic, right, so that you can know that all this is tested by science. A typical 70-year-old will do less than half as much moderate to vigorous physical activity as she did when she was 40. He or she did when they were 40. And after the age of 70, the decline accelerates. Fit people in their 70s and 80s are the exception, not the rule. So what that's just saying is a typical, Candy is not a typical person. She's the exception to the rule. Most people in their 70s and 80s are not active. And then what tends to happen is when you're from your 40s to your 70s, something happens. Even if you were somewhat active, or you were like the weekend warrior that went to the gym once in a while, you tend to not be that when you're 70 years old. And what they think about that is one of the biggest reasons is because of injury. And I've seen it in my family, people that I know who have been living an active life, and then they get injured, and then it's the steep decline after that. So older people tend to exercise less or not at all, simply because they simply can't. They've hurt themselves somewhere along the way, And I see it in here all the time too, where people hurt themselves, and what does the first thing the doctor do? Oh, well, you shouldn't do that, or you shouldn't do that, or you shouldn't squat, or you shouldn't do deadlifts anymore. And so then all they're doing is perpetuating sedentary behavior, right? You shouldn't do that because you might get hurt. You should live in a bubble so that so you don't hurt yourself. So I always have a little bit of a hard time when I'm doing PT and stuff like that, because their job is always just to make you safe in your environment, and I'm like, we don't live in a bubble. We need to be like safer outside of our environment to make us stronger. So they tend to, once they get hurt, if they don't deal with it properly and move through it properly and heal themselves and then try to get strong and stable again, then they just are on that steep decline at that point. And that's what they figure is what's the big difference between 40 and 70 of a somewhat active person and then no longer an active person, is they just got hurt. So think of it as medicine 2.0, when what does someone get told when they go to the doctor and they've hurt their knees? And I've been told it so many times. Don't squat. You shouldn't squat because it's bad for your knees. Or they hurt their back, don't do deadlifts. Like, never pick a pen up off the floor ever again. And that's what you get told. Don't do that. Don't do this. Don't lift over your head. Avoid overhead movements. Live inside of a bubble. And yet, if you want to live your life, you can't live inside that bubble. Okay, a frightening statistic. So I just thought I'd talk about, because that was again another big question that people had for me. The balancing and the risk of falling sort of made people like ask those questions, like what exactly does that mean? People 65 years of age and older that fall and break a major bone, so like not their finger, but like a femur, a hip, even like a big your humerus, like the big arm bone, will be dead within a year. Like, think of that statistic. And when you hear Attia talk about it, he's like, when they were doing the research for this, he said, I literally told my team to go back that they had gotten it wrong. There's no way that 30% of 65-year-olds would be dead within a year of a major fall, meaning they broke something bad. But it's true. So just think about that. 65 years and older. Some of us are not, like me included, are not that far away from that. Fall, but a major fall, right? Not like you're tripping and you break your finger. It's the big bone that what it does is that femur, that hip, it creates the decline, right? Because all of a sudden you are bedridden or you're in a wheelchair or whatever, and the recovery process declines you. And then of that, so let's say, and they say somewhere in that 15 to 30%, but let's go with 30% die. So of the remaining 70%, did I say, I didn't even, sorry, it was 30%. So
yeah, I was thinking all people.
Yeah, sorry. I'm like, where was the 30%? Sorry, that would be a lot of dead people. No, 30% of 65-year-olds that fall and have a major injury will be dead within the first year. Of that 70% remaining, half of those people will not recover to where they were previously. So then they didn't decline, or they didn't die, but they had that decline. And all of a sudden, if you were walking, you now need a cane or a walker. If you're using a cane, you now need a walker or a wheelchair. That's what that's talking about. So then if you look at the statistic of that, let's say all 30% died, and then of that, we have 70% remaining, half of those people. So then we're talking about 65% of people will not be the same person after they fall. And that's just a staggering number to me. And it's not like, we're not talking about an 85-year-old. So we're talking about quality of life for somebody who's 65 years old decreases dramatically. And then we talked about that last time, like, why does that happen? Lack of muscle mass or loss of muscle mass, loss of strength, loss of grip strength, loss of balance, coordination, all of those things that happen. And so today, one of the things that happens is that lack of stability and mobility, and that's what we're going to talk about today, okay? So then we already talked about that. Okay, so the one thing so I'm going to use myself as an example because right now I'm going through kind of a one of my more serious injuries that sort of has opened my eyes and made me realize that I'm nowhere near as stable as I thought I was. So I'm suffering from a lower back injury that sadly is more structural than anything. So I can't fix that, but what it has shown me that I'm nowhere near as stable as what I thought I was. So lifting wise, movement wise, how I hold myself, I'm not even close to what I thought. So then I've had to do a lot of learning, and I usually, hopefully, the only good thing about me getting injured is I usually like expel it to the rest of you and go, okay, we should not be doing this, we need to be doing this. So unfortunately I can't fix my stability or my structural issues, but I can fix my stability issues. So I'm currently working on that right now. But I thought I was like in a pretty good position, and I just wasn't. So we're going to spend our time talking about stability. So what is stability? So the definition of it is the subconscious ability to harness, decelerate, or stop a force. So we do that in here all the time, right? So we are moving forces, we're using weights, we're jumping on boxes, we're running, moving, changing direction, all those kinds of things create stability because we're trying to control our environment, and we're not consciously trying to do it, we're just doing it, right? A stable person can react to internal and external stimuli and adjust their position and muscular tension appropriately without tremendous amount of conscious thought. Like you don't have to be like, oh my God, I got to really hold my body to try to do this. We just do it, right? That's stability. So if I can control that, that's stability. So we do a lot of stuff in here, and when I talk about it and you hear me say, or the coaches say, when you're like moving around, I'm like, tighten up. You got to stabilize, or you're shifting, tighten up. You have to stabilize. So that's what stability is stabilizing that moving object that you're trying to, and it could be yourself. A stable body is a strong, fast, healthy body. Many acute injuries they talk about are a result of chronic weakness or lack of stability. It's not that you just fell off the box and you tore your ACL. It's probably that you constantly or chronically have been dealing with stability issues and a constant negative movement pattern that eventually results in that torn ACL or hamstring or back pain that all of a sudden you go down and pick it up. It isn't this that caused you to like put your back out all of a sudden. It's what has been going on all that time to where there's that final movement that creates that injury, right? So it's a slow breakdown of of stability and mobility. Stability is essential to any kind of movement, particularly if your goal is to be able to keep doing the movement you've been doing for years or decades to come. And I think, again, we can all sort of, well, all of us that are over the age of 40 probably can go, okay, you can see the differences in how you do things and how stable you are and how much balance you have, right? And so it's just slowly decreasing like all the rest of it. So anyways, you hear me and the coaches talk about staying stable when you lift and move and hold your body in a strong position. To be aware of what you are trying to do to move with proper mechanics. So I'm going to spend some time on proper mechanics tonight because we talk about it, and some people, most people listen, but some people don't really understand what we're trying to tell them. And it's not just like you're not doing it right, you're not checking a box, where, you know, it's not like the CrossFit Open where that's not going to get, you're going to get no rep on that. It's really about why do we do what we do. We do it, and I always talk about mechanics first, intensity later, and yet we have lots that would rather do that intensity and not worry about what their mechanics look like. And then those are the people that tend to be injured. So the shoulder injuries, the knee injuries, the back injuries is usually from some kind of movement pattern that is not serving you well. So why do we do snatches? So we've been doing quite a few snatches, and some people don't like snatches, and I do like snatches now. Didn't used to like them though, but why do we do that? Some doctors tell me we shouldn't be doing snatches or overhead squats. Why? I ask, like, why do we not do that? Because they can cause injury, and they can, I guess, right? But they don't. If you do them incorrectly, they do. If you perform them in an unstable position, they can hurt you. But if you do them mechanically sound with good stability, there isn't a barbell movement that is that better trains stability and strength. So lots of people in here avoid snatches, or they avoid those higher skill movements. They just don't want to do them. There's a difference between I can't do them because of lack of ability or stability, and I just don't want to do them because they're hard. But there is nothing better, nothing that is going to train you better for stability, strength, coordination, balance, body awareness, speed, strength than a snatch. You've got to take a bar from the ground all the way up over your head in one movement and do it safely. There is nothing we do in here that will provide all of those checkmark boxes. So when you're thinking, I'm just doing cleans today, I don't like snatches, or they always hurt my shoulder, or whatever, ask yourself, why are they hurting your shoulder? It's not the snatches. The snatches don't hurt your shoulder. It's what you're doing with the snatch that's hurting your shoulder. So it's not the snatch's fault, right? You have to take some ownership of that and go, okay, why can't I? Now, if you don't have the mobility to do it, and you just physically can't get the bar up there, or you have a frozen shoulder that just will not allow that to happen, that's different, right? That's a safety issue. That's a mechanics issue we can't correct in here. But mobility can be corrected with work, right? Stability can be corrected with work. So don't just automatically go, I don't do thrusters because I hate them, but I don't do thrusters because they hurt my shoulder or they hurt my knees. It's not the thruster, it's what you're doing. So we're gonna try to spend a lot of time on the stability movements and just do yourself a favor and work on them. Come to mobility, and pretty soon you'll be able to do some of those things without them hurting your knees or your back or your shoulder and all that kind of stuff, okay? Overhead squats is another perfect example, so I included, don't like overhead squats, but the reason I don't like them is because they're just hard to do. There is nothing, again, like snatches in here that will identify the weaknesses that you have better than an overhead squat. Even snatches, people can snatch up like this, right? As soon as you go to squat, you can't do it. All of a sudden you're like, why does it tip forward on me? It's because your shoulders aren't mobile enough, your thoracic spine doesn't have the stability to do it. So it's not the snatch that's doing it to you, it's you that's doing it to you. And overhead squats, they identify every single flaw you have in your body. So you shouldn't be like, I'm just never doing overhead squats. I can't do them, they're hard, I'm never doing them. You should try to understand why is it I can't do them, and then help myself. Sadly in here, I wish I could correct everybody's mobility problems, but I only have an hour. So then mobility classes help with that. And hopefully the things that we talk about today will help with that. And then it'll be up to you to do that extra work if you want that stability to be able to do those things. Okay, we'd already talked about deadlifts. Oh, it was interesting. The reason I put that in there. So it was Jake's dad, so I'm not trying to throw him under a bus. He was a wonderful guy. We met, he came into the gym on Saturday, Jake, Rain's dad. And so he used to be a PE teacher, I think. So we were trying to get him up and going, and we were doing deadlifts and bench press that day. And so I said, do you know how to do those things? And he goes, yeah, I do upper body all the time, but I don't do lower body. And he looked like really fit. And so I'm like, you don't do lower body? And he goes, well, I do cardio and stuff like that, but I don't do lower body. And I'm like, why don't you do lower body stuff? And he goes, well, I don't want to hurt my back. I'm like, so you're just not going to do a deadlift? And so then, of course, I went into my spiel and went, it's not the deadlift that's going to hurt your back. It's when you don't deadlift and you go to pick up a pencil that's going to hurt your back. And so then him and I started talking. He's a PE teacher, and he goes, oh my God. He goes, you're just so right. And I'm like, I know. But he goes, you're exactly right. He goes, I'm afraid of hurting myself. And that's the biggest reason why people don't do it, right? They don't want to get hurt. I don't want to get hurt either, especially when you get older. It's harder to get hurt. It takes longer to recover from that. So we try to avoid things that are going to hurt us. But him not doing a deadlift it's not going to be that hurts him. It's going to be the bending over and grabbing something and not having a stable, strong core thoracic spine that is going to cause him to hurt his back. So after our little discussion, he was like, I said, you just need to find a gym that helps you. I agree, don't go to Lifetime and do deadlifts all by yourself. Have somebody teach you how to do deadlifts, and then you should be doing deadlifts. So he agreed with me, of course. Okay, so this is where we get to the fun stuff a little bit, and I'm going to stop talking a whole bunch. So we're how to test and work on stability. So there's 6 things, and he has them in his book that you can. So if you do ever read his book, they're in there in great detail. But better than that, you just go to his website. So if you go to his website and click, I think it's the link. I'm going to send the link out when I send the video out for everybody to watch. I'll have the link in there as well, so you don't even have to go to his website. You'll be able to go there and see these. So we have them pulled up, and then Abby is going to be there she is. She's going to be my demo person. So we're going to demo these. We're going to do a couple where you're also going to do them so that you can get some hands-on, especially the things that we can do in here. Step up being one of them. So we're going to teach you how to do a proper step up where you load yourself properly. So we're going to go through all of these, and then there'll be some that we're going to actually do, like I said, and then the rest, he has very great videos. If he is anything, he's a very good communicator of things. So you can go to those videos and then you'll be able to watch them. And these things, none of these have to be done in the gym. So the great thing is, A, you can go through these things and go, can I do these? Which I was like, no. I can't do very many of them, which is sad. But then you test and then you work on it. So then you can do this at home. We don't have to do it in here. Probably you're going to start to see some more of this in here where we do this after, like we would do mobility and stuff like that. So I'm probably going to incorporate some of this because that's what I try to do, is when I learn, I try to put it in the gym. But then if I don't, or if you're like, she never does that one, all these things are things you can do at home. You do not need my gym to do it, okay? So the first one is going to be a step up. So we're going to show you how to do a proper step up. The next one, and you're going to all get up and do this with me as well, it's going to be eyes closed balance, and you're going to test your balance, which is frighteningly bad for me. Segmental cat-cow. We do this one in mobility a lot, but when you do this segmental version of it, like what they talk about, it's truly trying to control each vertebrae of your spine, going down and back on the spine, whereas we just go up and down. So we're going to learn how to actually control each little segment, and most people, me included, couldn't even do it. So then you practice it at home, and he talks about practicing in front of a mirror, either no clothes or have a tight shirt on so you can see yourself. So don't be wearing baggy clothes so you can't see what you're trying to do. Toe yoga, so we're going to try to do that one in here. You're going to take your shoes off and do toe yoga, another one I can't do. Barry get up, we're not going to do the Barry get up. I'm going to show you what it is. Abby's going to show it to you. But when everybody was complaining how much they hated Turkish get ups last week, it's the same thing. So, except we do it with weight. So we make it actually a little bit harder. But you can do a Barry get up at home, and it's named after one of their clients named Barry. But we do them in here. So hint, there's a reason why we do Turkish get-ups in here. And then scap cars, which is, and we're going to do this one, where you control your shoulder blades and find how much movement you actually have in your shoulder blades. So we'll go through all of those, okay? All right, so first one, Abigail, is going to come up. So the one thing, so the first one, and we do step-ups in here a lot. Now, in a WOD, we're not going to necessarily do it the way we're doing it right here. Does that put you in there still? Okay. So in a WOD, I don't expect you to go super slow and then control and do that control on the eccentric down. But in separate away from a WOD, I would expect that, or you should expect yourself to do what she's going to do here. It's definitely a little bit different, okay? They do talk about the box being, so when you put your foot up on the box, so this could be probably a little bit too high. We'll go to that lower one. They want this leg to be parallel to the ground. And why do they want that to be parallel to the ground? Because if you're trying to get yourself up off of the ground, so if you're like this is what your femur looks like, right? So you want to be able to get up out of a position off the ground, at least at that parallel. You can be higher, but at least at that parallel height. So then when you're doing step-ups in the gym, unless there's a reason and you can't do them, you might want to try to increase your box height, at least when you're practicing these, not in a WOD necessarily, but when you're practicing them. The little box, like a 12-inch box, gets you to here, right? So does it necessarily get you off the ground? If you have a 12-inch height, and yes, you can manage that, great, but can you manage getting off of the ground? And that's what this is talking about, okay? So, this is one of my new boxes. This is because of Nancy. I searched the internet, we found one. Okay, so she's gonna have, so she's now parallel to the ground, or her thighs parallel to the ground, right? So a good test for this when you're doing this and when you're actually putting it into practice in the gym, or if you have a box at home, is when you're here and you go to load. So she's gonna go to load forward, so she's gonna load. So right now, back up, here, her thigh is, well, there's no flat there, but anyways, pretend. It's loose there, okay? So if you were feeling, it's like your muscles are loose, right? Then she's gonna load. So she's gonna get ready to stand, which is what we would do in here all the time, but now her hamstring is tight, it's loaded. So Atia talks about that he said, I still, when I work on these, and he goes, I do them every day, he goes, I still feel that, and then I step. So he knows his hamstring has loaded, okay? So she loads. So now, stability, so we are talking about stability, right? And keeping your feet flat and grounded. So she's got her foot flat, she's not coming up on her toes, she's not trying to drive through her heel, she's trying to go from her heel to her toe with her big toe, little toe, heel. He calls it a tripod position. flat on that box. So she loads, she's gonna step up with this leg, leave this leg out of it. So she comes up, and then she's gonna come to here where she's not even gonna use this leg, she's just gonna balance there, okay? Now she's gonna come back and she's going to go, he talks about the eccentric phase of the step up, where she's gonna control that descent down and then back down. So instead of, so this, that was the correct way, we're gonna show you the incorrect way, and then we'll show you back to the correct way again. So if she doesn't load this leg properly, so let's just say we're doing a step up in the gym, or you're practicing this, she brings her leg up and she pushes. You hear me say don't push with your back leg, right? Use your front leg. So she pushes herself up. So she's used this leg. She has not used this leg very much, so she hasn't created any kind of stability with this leg at all. She's trying to balance herself and use that back leg. So she's gonna come up. Then to come down, when I said that eccentric load, again, in the gym when we're doing a WOD, fine, come down, but when you're practicing this, she's gonna take this leg away, so she's gonna step back and just drop. This is the wrong way. So she just drops out of it, right? So she didn't use this leg to really help herself. She just fell out of the step. So that would be the incorrect way to do a step up. Again, in the WOD, I'm not expecting you to be like having 50-pound dumbbells in your hands and trying to lower yourself nice and slow. But when you're working on stability, yes. So first, she's good for the good way again. She's gonna load. She's gonna pull with this leg up to standing, not use that foot. She's gonna bring it back, and now she's gonna control. And when she controls, can you go up one more time? When she controls, watch how her knee sort of hinges forward, and then her hips come back and she goes down. So she loads and controls down. So now she's controlling that whole movement on that leg, so that again, you have the stability, not just the strength, but you can control it. So stability is about control, right? So she can control that descent. So that's the step up that you're looking to work towards. So if you can't do it right away on this height, you start with a lower height. And he shows that in the video. In the beginning, you start with a little height, you master that, then you go to the height like this, you master that, and then if you can do that well, and he said like even for 2 to 3 months, he had to practice just that before he got well enough to do that, to then add dumbbells to it. So you can add load to it as long as you can do it properly before, with some mechanics first, intensity second, right? All right, so that's our step up. So then, the one we're gonna practice in, I was gonna do that for everybody, but there's too many people here today. So we're gonna do the eyes closed balance though. With that one, so we're gonna show Abby again. So she's going to stand on one leg with her knee slightly bent. And this one, everybody's gonna get up after I'm done this, so just hang on. So we're gonna stand on one leg with that leg slightly bent, okay? Then she's at the top, she's just gonna be loose. So she's not like this, trying to balance like this. She's loose, okay? She's loose and she's just hanging out. So she's not using this foot, but she's just gonna put it behind her. It's not gonna be part of it. So she's balancing on one leg. So for lots of us, we'll be able to do that. Now she's gonna close her eyes. So all of a sudden you'll see her start to waver just a little bit. Again, she's 25, so she's not gonna waver that much. But then, so if you can do that, because as soon as you take that out of it, balance becomes a problem. Then she's gonna slowly turn her head this way and turn her head, and now you see where the stability becomes a problem as soon as you start. So the first thing you do is you practice. Can I stand on one leg, slight bend, but you don't wanna be this and you don't wanna be this. You wanna be loaded, right? So everybody's gonna stand up. If you want to take your shoes off, you can, if you feel like those are going to be detrimental. We are going to talk about what kind of shoes we should be wearing. Okay, so you're going to stand on one leg and you're just going to be loose. So this leg is going to be slightly bent, but in control, right? It's the control leg. The rest of me is kind of just hanging there. Toe can go in the back to balance you, so hang out there. All right, then you're going to close your eyes.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh.
Okay, so then open your eyes. So he says you should be able to do that for at least 45 seconds to a minute.
Okay.
Then we're gonna go to the other leg because I was on my good leg. We all have our bad leg. So then you're gonna go to your other leg, whether it's your good or bad. So then you're gonna go on one leg again, relax. You can use your toe to help you if you need to. Stand there for just a second, and now close your eyes.
Ooh.
Okay, so open your eyes. We're not going to do the head turning because I don't want anybody toppling over on me. But if you are practicing this at home, or you can do it here, it doesn't matter to me, before or after class. If you want to try that, I mean, you could also, like, if you're like, but you've got to first go A to B, right? So you're not going to start turning your head like this, and it has to be like nice. I can't even do it with holding on barely. Nice and slow, like what she did. So you're not going like this. You're literally slow, but you first have to be able to stand like this without losing your balance for a minute before you're going to start turning your head, okay? So don't put the cart before the horse, right? So that's going to be your eyes closed balance. All right? Okay. So that's something you can easily do at home, right? And when we go to toe yoga, the best way to do it will be on your bare feet because you want to be grounded. Okay, so segmental cows. So this is the one, you guys can sit down, or you can stand if you want. Segmental cat-cow. So we do this in mobility. So if you ever come to mobility, we do this. But, so if she's, can I see you there? You can, okay. So if you've been to mobility, we do a cat-cow where just do what we would do in mobility. We just go up, and then we go down, and if Philip's in your class, he goes moo, meow. So most of us can do that, right? Segmental, what means is that we're gonna get her vertebrae to go one at a time. Hang on. So I tested that to make sure she could do it because it looks super duper hard. So she's got a nice tight shirt on, so you're gonna get to see her back. And if you can't see what I'm doing, like try to come and see so that you can try to do this yourself. And you will for sure, because you won't even have the body awareness if you try to do this by yourself. So you're gonna need a partner or somebody to do this for you because that tactile touch, the tactile of it all, my fingers going up her back will direct where she's supposed to be, okay? So we're gonna start at the base of her spine and we're gonna walk up her spine where we start here. So here, and then as I go, she has to just lift her spine slowly, and you can see her going segment, and it's right in here that it's really hard. So we had to practice this today to get her to even be able to do it. So then she goes here, as she comes up higher, and then her neck goes down. Then we're gonna go from here, and we're gonna bring her down. So we're gonna come here, and she's gonna go piece by piece, drop here. So most of us will not be able to do this without lots of practice. And you won't be able to do it without a partner. So you can hop up. We're not doing this one today, but go home, find a mirror if you can, find a tighter shirt so you can see, and then get your partner, somebody to walk their fingers up your back. And you'll notice, like the first time we did it, she in the middle, so right in this part of her back, she couldn't get it to like move. She had to really think about it. And again, he talks about it 2 to 3 months before he could figure out how to do that. But that builds that stability. When you can do that, you've got stability in each part of your spine, right? Each segment of your spine, which is the absolute most important part of our whole thing, is our spine, is our trunk, right? That moves everything. So that's your segmental cow. So then I encourage you to watch the video on that one. The toe yoga is what we're all gonna do. So you're all gonna take your shoes off. This one, for me, was like, oh my gosh, I can't even do this. This is depressing. So he talks about, and I'm sure if you've ever heard people talk about being grounded and keeping, staying close to the earth, so part of the reason we lose stability is because we wear shoes that cause that to happen. So we wear shoes that don't keep us flat to the ground. So those shoes tight shoes, so women wear tighter shoes, not necessarily me, but people, if you wear like dress shoes or whatever, then those things bring your toes in together, which when those toes are crowded together, that's what causes our stability to start to go, and that we can't, when we need to, splay our feet out and our toes out and stabilize us to the ground. If you've ever seen pictures that where you see them barefoot back a long time ago when they used to walk barefoot, their feet were flatter and wider because they were stable to the ground, whereas we've crunched ourselves into shoes and we've lost that ability to do that. So then when we get in here, I see people all the time, me included, when I'm saying big toe, little toe, heel, get them flat, constantly moving around, people are shifting and not grounding themselves. And if you're not flat to the floor and grounded to the floor, you can't be stable. You're not a flat, stable surface. Now people think I hate Hokas. I don't hate Hokas. I hate Hokas in here because you can't be stable in here in Hokas. If you're out running, fantastic. They're the best thing to be out running with because it's meant to cushion and absorb and do what it's supposed to do. But in here, it makes it worse for you, honestly. It's terrible for your muscles. It's terrible for your stability. It's terrible for your joints when you're fighting a shoe that is trying to keep you off balance, like keep you cushioned. And in here, we want to stay flat. So that's the reason I don't hate Hokas or any of those kind of shoes. Just in here, they don't serve you well at all. So toe yoga is what we're going to do next. So on toe yoga, so come up here. Can you see me?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you see the feet?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what you're going to do is, and everybody can stand up on this if you can see me. So you're going to do this with me. So you're going to keep, so your feet are flat, okay? So he talks about the tripod position, which is big toe, little toe, heel. So make sure those are flat to the ground, okay? So you're stable now. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to bring your toes up, keep your feet on the ground though. So the metatarsals, which are the bones in your feet. So if these are my toes, these are the bones, right? Keep your feet on the ground, lift your toes, and now try to open your toes. Splay them opened. So splay them opened, and then press them into the ground like that. So now you should be in the ground, and he does talk about, I don't obviously have those here, putting like those spacers, you know, the spacers. What's that? That's right, I guess, if you have those. I don't
Chuck
do
walks
that.
around with those in our house.
Oh.
It's disgusting. Let me just say. No, this rubber thing where they
But
separate your
it's,
toes.
It feels
he
good.
talks about it. He said you should do those until you can do this properly. So I've got my toes separated. So now if you can do it, fantastic. That I even had to work at that today. Then the tricky part is, so you are going to, you should have your socks off for this, but if you aren't going to take them off, you're going to lift just 1 foot at a time. You're going to lift your big toe, but pay attention to what I'm saying. You can't, so if I can't go like this, so I can't raise it like this. I've still got to keep my metatarsals, so my feet, my bones in my feet on the floor, and just lift your big toe off. Just lift it and keep your other toes on the ground. So 4 toes, so these toes have to stay on the ground. Your big toe comes up. So then hold, so then the bone underneath my foot should be on the ground. So try to do that. Then put that down. Now try to lift the 4 toes, these toes, 2 to 5, up without going like this. So just your
Oh my.
toes.
Ain't gonna happen.
So it's kind of mental, but so I can do it on this leg. I cannot do it on this leg. So then you're going to put that foot down. So on this foot, you're going to lift your big toe up. So lift it up. Oh, see, like I practiced and now I can do it. That's fantastic. So that toe goes up and then it goes down. And now your 4 toes come up without your big toe coming up.
Oh, I can't do that.
So if you can't do that, then how are you grounded to the floor, right? And so it's a very good indicator as to how stable you are on that floor. Are you flat and stable and connected to the ground? Or are you the person that is constantly like toes are moving together and they can't move apart and can't work separately? So again, something to practice, right? And he does talk about wearing that toe thing or whatever. So if you need one, go grab that. Okay, so that is your toe yoga. So then when you hear me talk in the gym now, right, when I say big toe, little toe, heel flat on the ground and stop rocking around, stabilize yourself. When you're rocking around, and let's say we're getting ready to do a deadlift, and I see this where people are shifting, how can you lift a deadlift properly off the ground if you have not got your feet on the ground firmly? So we're going to spend a lot of time on that because I know I'm not very good at it. I'm way better at it when I'm wearing stable shoes. When I'm wearing even these shoes, right? These are not stable enough for me. I am rocking around. So I wear them while I work out, while I coach, but I don't wear them while I work out. I just can't be flat enough. So this trainer shoes that and I'm not telling everybody to go and buy trainers for sure, but that's what they help us do. They keep us flat to the ground. So now people are going to be like, well, can I work out barefoot? No. You can, you should probably work out barefoot in the comfort of your own home where there's not all the obstacles that are in here. So we just don't walk barefoot in here because there's just too many things that could fall on your foot and you could hurt yourself. So we're not going to do that in here. We don't do that. But at home, for sure, do stuff with your bare feet or your sock feet so you learn to be stable to the ground. If you've ever heard of grounding, connected to the earth, that's what part of that is about, okay? So that's your toe yoga. All right, you remember Barry get-ups? Okay, so Barry get-ups, and then I got, wow, there is a reason that we do Turkish get-ups. Weird. So Barry get-ups are very similar, but they're basically teaching people how to be able to go from the ground and get up to standing. So most people, most people, 90-year-olds could sit on the ground like that. And then they could also probably get on the ground like this if they had to get on the ground like this. But can they get from here and up to standing? And that's where the problems get to, right? So on a Barry get up, and again, there's a video, so you guys will watch this. We're not going to do it. She's just going to show us what happens there, and then you can watch the videos. So she's sitting up, so she's going to turn that way. So she, just like the get up, right, that we do, we lean over and we drop that hip. We're not going to partly do these. You should do these. Hang on. If we're at home, make sure he talks about warm yourself up. So if you have any kind of meniscus problem or anything like that, these kinds of movements where we're dropping our hip out like that, if we're not in here, we're usually warmed up before we do things like this. But at home, people tend to just go into things cold. Well, that's when you're going to hurt yourself. So then make sure if you're doing these, you've warmed up so that when you go out and you're sliding your leg, you're not going to like hurt something there. So he talks about that. So make sure you do that. So she's got her hand down like we would do a Turkish get up. Her knee drops, and now she's going to come up onto that knee just like we would have done if we were doing, and then sit up if we were doing a Turkish get up. The only thing different is we're just not holding a kettlebell over our head, right? So then she's going to come back down on that knee. She's going to swivel this foot this way. She's going to bring her hips back down, dragging. So he talks about controlling this movement down so that they've got that eccentric control again. So if she just drops out of it, she's not building that strength where you're trying to get up or down off the ground and need to be engaged the entire time you do it. So if you just kind of practice and fall through it, you won't build that stability and that movement pattern that you need when you actually need to get up off the ground, okay? So that's the get up, or that's the Barry get up. Did I miss something? No. That's the Barry get up. But again, I encourage you to watch the video. We're not doing that in here. The last thing we're going to do in here, though, is the scap cars, which is controlled articular rotation, which is about our shoulders and how well they move. So she's going to get on this box for me. Okay, so in the beginning, so with these, she's going to have her hands down by her sides, okay? So it's about the movement of our shoulders and how stable are our shoulders, right? They're probably the most common injury in here is the shoulders, because they're the absolute most movable joint. They move everywhere, all over the place, right? So then if they're not moving in a good movement pattern, then they have that risk of injury. So then how stable are your shoulders? So what he talks about is she's going to, with her hands straight, so no bending your hands, you're first just going to see where is your mobility, and we're going to do what's called a box with her shoulders. So she's going to bring them up, shrug. She's going to retract. She's going to bring them back. She's gonna drop them and she's gonna bring them forward and up, retract, drop them down, and bring them forward, okay? So if you want, while you're sitting there, come forward so your arms can stay straight. And again, when you're in, so you're gonna think you have movement. You're gonna do it and you're gonna be like, oh yeah, I can do these. You need to see a mirror. Like you see her, right? Her shoulders are back, then they're down, then they're forward, then they're up. You can see that. And so it's easy to see because she's in this kind of a shirt. But if you're in this big baggy sweatshirt, you're not gonna see it very well. So think, just like what she's doing. So we're going forward, up, shrug, pull them back to retract, drop them down, bring them forward, and up, and back, and retract, and forward. Now, and doing that a whole bunch of times, then he talks about, and going the other way, no, hang on, going the other way as well. But what we're gonna, so you can go forward, right? But we're gonna now take the box out of it, and can you actually move them in a circle? So she's gonna go forward, she's going forward, so she's going forward and around, and up, and forward, and around. So think, can I do that? And be purposeful. Don't be like, oh yeah, I can do this. It's like up and around and back and around. I know for a fact, I've talked way too much today. Crossover symmetry. The one where we come down here, scap retraction, I would say 8 out of 10 people cannot pull their shoulders back where they belong, like in that retraction. So you think you can do it, but look in the mirror, go home tonight, take your shirt off. Can you actually pull those shoulders back and pinch your shoulder blades together and get that full rotation? If you can't, you don't have any movement in your thoracic spine to be able to do that, right? Okay, the other thing he talks about, so then the more advanced movement is taking your arms out front. So now you're gonna do the same thing. She's gonna come shrug up, bring them back, retract, down, forward, up, back, down, forward. Watch that your elbows aren't trying to bend while you do this. Keep your arms straight out and try that one with your arms out. Down and around. And then she's gonna start to move it together in a circle. All right. The last one she's going to show you, which she couldn't do this one very well. So the most advanced for this would be on the ground. So then you're closed. So here you're open, right? My form is open. Here it's a closed circuit because I'm touching the ground. So then she's going to try the same thing, much more difficult to try to do. So see if you can come up, shrug up, and back, and see how she's shifted her body back instead of her shoulders back, and then drop down and go forward, and then come up and go back. And so you can't, so you see how she's shifting to do that, so you can get up. And so that one is like super hard, but that one you don't have to do right away, right? Again, he talks about you do some for a couple months, then you do it for a couple months again on the next phase, and then you go to the next. Don't just be like, well, I do CrossFit, I'm just gonna go to phase 3. You gotta test your stability and work your stability. So, I'm gonna stop talking because I've got like a sore throat. All right, so that is your stability. So I'm gonna give you guys that link, but you can also, you don't need the link, you can just go to his website. I think it's Dr. Peter Attia Drive or something like that. And then you go to his book, and then the videos are there. Okay, so what should we be doing better in the gym? So we're just gonna finish this off and then we're done. Mechanics, mechanics, mechanics. So in here, we spend as the coaches, we're trying to demo, correct, teach. We're not doing it to annoy. Most people think, a lot of people think like we're trying to pick on you or make it harder for you, but how you move matters. So really pay attention to the mechanics, right? And just because you think I've been doing CrossFit for 5, 6, 10 years, doesn't mean you know how to do it properly. So pay attention to your mechanics. Like I said in the beginning, snatches do not hurt us. Improper snatches hurt us. Improper mechanics hurt us. So it drives me crazy when people are like, deadlifts hurt your back. They don't. You hurt your back. It's just you doing the deadlift incorrectly that causes the problems, okay? So if you hear us talk about lifting overhead and you're in this position, right? It's a terrible position for your shoulders. Get them back where they belong in mechanics. Knees, when you're squatting, get your knees out. Don't let them cave in. All the things that we talk about. Grip strength, so we are going to be doing some more grip strength in the gym. That also is that stability, right? How strong are you to actually hold the bar properly or hold yourself on the pull-up bar properly? If you're just hanging there with weak grip strength and weak shoulders, you're going to hurt your shoulders. So one of my rules is being you can't do kipping anything until you can do an actual pull-up, because you have to have the strength and stability to be able to do it. It's not because I don't think you're good enough, it's that you just don't have the strength and stability if you can't pull yourself to the bar. So if you can't hold yourself on the bar in an active shoulder position, which we talk about in here, then if you're just fingertips and hanging like this, you don't have the strength to do that. And so you need to work on your grip strength first before you should be hanging on a bar and putting your shoulders at risk. So you'll see a lot of farmers carry dead hangs coming up. And then work on mobility and stability, just like we talked about. There's mobility in here after every class. It's there. Sometimes as a coach I forget to put it, but it's always there in SugarWOD, so you always know it's there to do. And then we have mobility on Tuesdays and Sundays, and I'm pretty sure stability work that we just did will be showing up in mobility. The one thing I just want to talk about with this gym in particular, and there's tons of gyms out there, right? All kinds of gyms. And then there's lots of CrossFit gyms. The one thing that you get, which I talked about earlier, is the wisdom of all my injuries, I guess, and issues that I've had over the years, because I learn. So then even just my lower back that I'm trying to figure out right now, I've learned that I'm not doing things the way I thought I was doing them, and I'm not as stable as I thought. And I see those flaws now in people, in their lower back and how they're holding their lower back and how they're arching. I see it. So I'm trying to correct it in those people because it is one of my problems, apparently. So this gym is just a little bit different that way, in that we're not a true CrossFit gym in the sense that we just do the CrossFit exercises and we just do the WODs. I do really try to give you more than that and try to focus on the mobility, the stability, the health, now the longevity of it, so that you're hopefully getting a little bit more than just a typical gym. I don't think we have to talk about that. And I think I've talked about that. And then just remember, so the last thing I'm going to just talk about is medicine 2.0. So I'm not throwing doctors necessarily under the bus. Some of them are great doctors, right? But medicine 2.0, we've talked about that. Stability and injuries come with that. So if I listened to the doctors I had years ago, I would literally be walking around the block with my arms at my side because they shouldn't be up here. So when I started to get knee injuries, the first thing they told me is you've got to stop doing CrossFit. This is before I even owned a gym. Stop doing CrossFit and just start walking. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. And they're like, otherwise your knees, your knees are just going to be ruined for the rest of your life. And so I did not listen to that. And then God forbid if I had to actually bend down and pick something up, what would have happened? I don't know. So I didn't listen, but I found the right doctors. I didn't dismiss doctors. I just found the right doctors that listen to me and are more holistically centered in that it's not good enough that I can walk around a block. I need to be able to do more than that. So medicine 2.0 has it wrong, but there's lots of 3.0 doctors out there. You just have to find them, okay? I want to stay healthy, like we talked about, injury-free, and so that I can fall off that cliff when I'm 96. So don't let injuries define you. Becoming sedentary is not an option, or at least not a good one. So please, please don't listen to the doctors when they're like, yeah, you got to take 3 weeks off from the gym because your shoulder's hurting you. No, you just have to maybe not do overhead movements for a while your shoulder's getting healed, right? We've talked about how detrimental it is to be sedentary, and that injuries now lead to that sedentary behavior, and which leads to our decline. So because you're injured doesn't mean you stop being active. It just means you modify what you can do while you're healing, and then you do a better job of trying not to get hurt the next time, okay? So please, please don't be that person where it's like, oh yeah, my doctor said I have to, rest for 2 weeks because I, broke my toe or something like that. All right, that's all I got. Questions? Questions, concerns? All right. InBody is starting tomorrow, right? So I'm here in the morning, and then